Howdy, guys, and welcome to night 59 of Big Brother Season 23's overnight feed recaps. And welcome to Cliff Notes from outside the Big Brother house. And welcome to Saturday, the first Saturday of college football. Woo! All right, so this recap's going to be a little bit quicker because, first of all, college football. And number two, just not that much happened in the house last night. We'll talk about a couple of conversations, but kind of a quiet night. Everyone went to bed a little bit early, getting ready for the veto competition today. So we'll talk about that. But first of all, as a refresher, Tiffany won HOH, second Thursday night in a row that she's won an HOH competition. And to absolutely no one's surprise, she has put up Xavier and Alyssa, with Alyssa being the target to go home this week. We'll see if that happens. There's a good chance it will, but we'll see if she doesn't get some little kinks in her plan somewhere along the way. So there you go. Alyssa and Xavier are on the block. Now, we did have some big news yesterday. This is before the overnight feeds, but still worth throwing out there. We had the big table got reduced to the medium-sized table that seats 8 players. I remember during my season, that was such a huge, monumentous occasion when we realized that this table had shrunk down to such a smaller size. Just as a little bit of an FYI, when something like that happens, we were locked away in the HOH room, as were the house guests yesterday also. Locked away so you can't see all the workers in there pulling out one table, putting another one in. We didn't know what was going on. We were locked in. When we came out, we saw the table. And yeah, it makes you feel good knowing that you've made it so far that you got the smaller table. And somewhere a little further down the road, they're going to get even a smaller table. So they were excited about that. The other thing that happened was kind of interesting last night, is the backyard is open, which really is kind of strange that you would have a backyard open right before the veto competition. What that tells me is that the veto competition is not going to be played in the backyard, which is typical and normal. It's going to be played in an alternate location as well, which makes me really start thinking, what kind of veto comp could this be? It's not going to be BB Comics. That's always played in the backyard. I start thinking about the competition from last season. Do y'all remember the one that Davon won that was the stacking the little mini cans? I could see something like that perhaps taking place in an alternate spot. So it may be an interesting veto competition that we get today. And Zingbot's making an appearance too. So tying in Zingbot to whatever kind of comp they're going to do. I'm looking forward to it. But we got that. So the backyard is open. Everyone is happy about that. We do have overnight, Tiffany earlier in the evening, she's talking to the cameras and she's saying that she really wants to win veto so that she can have complete control this week. She can lock in her nominations. Well, as HOH, you always want to win veto so you have complete control. I get it completely, and I think it's a good idea. I think she needs to make sure that her noms don't change because otherwise it creates all kinds of chaos, which we as viewers would love to see. But from Tiffany's standpoint, she needs the noms to stay the same. And so I get that. But here's the thing. As I mentioned just a second ago, Tiffany has now won 2 HOH comps, 2 successive Thursday nights. If she follows that up with a veto win today, are people going to start looking at her as maybe being an in-game comp beast, as a bit of a threat to win a lot more games going forward? I don't know. I think from building a resume standpoint, it really helps her. But so much of her resume has already been built from a strategy standpoint. I think you do what you have to do to stay in control. So I'm not faulting her for trying to win the veto. I'm just saying if she wins too many competitions all at once, that target on her back just gets a little bit bigger every time she does it. But you do what you have to do. So she wants to win this week, keep noms the same. Now, I didn't see the actual conversation, but I saw some after talk that a new alliance is formed. Ding, 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 ring the bell. Yeah, another alliance. We haven't talked about alliances in a while, new ones. But we've got an alliance between Tiffany and Hannah and Claire. All right, so this alliance is going to last all of perhaps a week, right? But Claire theoretically is not long for this game, but things could change. But we've got that alliance between the three. It's not the alliance forming itself that is so interesting because, again, the plan officially, at least, is to send Claire out the door. But it's just more indication that Tiffany and Hannah just continue to get tighter and closer. They've already said they intend to be each other's final 2, and I absolutely am believing it. And I think this new alliance is just more indication of that. All right, after Claire leaves, we've got Hannah talking about Big D. And she's saying that Big D has a final 2 with everyone in the house, it seems like. Well, just for the record, he has a final 2 with Xavier and with Kylan, and that's it. As far as I know, Meanwhile, Hannah has 2 or 3 final two. She's got a final two with Tiffany. She's got a final two with Xavier, and she kind of has a final two with Alyssa to some degree also. Tiffany is talking about how much she doesn't trust Xavier. Now, remember, I just said that Hannah's got a final two with Xavier, so of course Tiffany is probably aware that they're somewhat close also, Xavier and Hannah. And so she's pointing out saying, look, I don't trust Xavier. You shouldn't trust Xavier either. And they start talking at that point about how to get Big D get Big D out, potentially get Big D first out of the house. He's the easy guy to target. They're going to go after the guys. We've talked about that multiple times. They're going to go after the guys. I'm a little surprised they go after Big D as opposed to going after Xavier or Kylan first. But they're talking about they really need to get Big D out as quickly as possible. Now, I thought this was the most interesting part of the entire conversation last night. So focus, pay attention, because this is what I really honed in on. Hannah mentions to Claire, or to Tiffany, she says, we really need to have Claire win HOH next week. Yeah. Wow. All right. Theoretically, officially, when they talk to anyone else, Claire's the target next week. Yes, they want Claire to go home. Unofficially, though, Hannah and I think Tiffany as well really want Claire to survive this week. That's why it's so important for them to have control so they can send Alyssa out the door. Then really hope that Claire wins HOH next week, because if that happens, they know that Claire's not going to go after them. Claire's going to go after the guys. Claire is going to put 2 Cookout guys on the block, send one of them home. At that point now, the women of the house have the numbers. Tiffany and Hannah could always send Claire out next week or whatever, because at that point, they've got the numbers in the game. They can control until they get potentially to the final 2. So, yes, they're loyal to the Cookout. They're probably not going to go out of their way to betray the Cookout. But if Claire happened to win and they don't have any choice but to send a guy out, well, then it's not their fault. They don't have any blood on their hands, right? So, yeah, I thought that's very interesting. Now, here's the big question. If they're all playing HOH next week and Claire looks like she maybe is getting ready to win, would Tiffany or Hannah throw the competition to Claire? I think they would. They wouldn't tell anyone and they wouldn't make it obvious. But if they could get away with it, I think they would. It could be a really fun next week or two. All right. What else going on? Tiffany's talking to the cameras. She's saying that she took a risk winning that HOH. And I agree, a little bit of a risk. But because she's done that, she has to follow through. She has to send Alyssa home this week. If she wins HOH and Claire still goes home, then her whole HOH is wasted. So she's really got to send Alyssa home. She also is mentioning that really the only 2 people that want her to stay a long time in this game are Claire and Kylan, that she feels like they've got her back and no one else does. It kind of struck me as funny. Not Hannah. Hannah, your final 2, she doesn't include her as a mention. And I'm not sure that Kylan wants Tiffany to stay as long in this game as Tiffany thinks Kylan wants her to stay. But that's what she says to the camera. So perception, everyone has different thoughts about some of this stuff. All right, we've got Hannah and Tiffany talking some more. Tiffany is saying, look, if Big D wins and pulls Xavier off, I'm going to put up Ozza instead. And I'm not sure if she put that as a plan or if that would be used as a bit of a threat to Big D. I could see them, if Big D wins veto, I could potentially see them come up saying, look, if you pull Xavier off, we're going to put up Ozza. And we know you don't want that Big D, right? I don't know. But she's saying that she'd put up Ozza if that was to happen. And Hannah's talking about why she can't figure out why Kylan was so upset that Tiffany won the HOH when he was supposed to throw it to Ozza anyway. Well, it's for the same reason that Tiffany and Hannah would have been incredibly upset if Kylan won the HOH instead of Ozza. It's all about power and who controls who goes home this week. Hannah is also saying it doesn't matter since Alyssa and Claire are both going to be going home on next Thursday anyway. They're assuming a double eviction. They're correct in that assumption. She's saying it doesn't matter. They're both going home next week anyway. And yet we just heard Hannah saying that she would love to see Claire win HOH next week and go after the guys. That's why Kylan is so upset. That's why all the guys are so upset at the way things turned out at the HOH win competition on Thursday. Now, apparently all the house guests were told at some point by Big Brother that they're going to have to be up at 7 o'clock for veto picks. It's going to be a long day. So as a result of that, we get most of the house guests in bed pretty early. They're all trying to rest up. We're only going to have 2 people that aren't competing in the veto competition. Everyone else is playing a very, very important veto competition. So real quick, before we shut down, just as a bit of a thought, an analysis on what happens with the veto today. If Alyssa wins veto, obviously she pulls herself off, and Tiffany will be forced to put up Claire. Will Tiffany do that? Would she betray the Cookout Alliance and save Claire? I don't think so. I think Tiffany would go ahead and put up Claire as much as she hates that. So if Alyssa wins, Claire gets on the block. Claire probably gets sent home. If Xavier wins, he's talked about pulling Alyssa off instead of himself and forcing Tiffany's hand, forcing Tiffany to either turn on the Cookout Alliance or put up Claire. I don't think Xavier will do that. I think if he wins veto, he's going to pull himself off. He's going to protect himself just because he doesn't trust Tiffany or anyone else enough to put his fate in their hands. So I think at that point, Alyssa stays on the block and goes home. Anyone else, if they win the veto, I think they end up keeping Alyssa, keeping the noms the same, and Alyssa goes home. So really, Alyssa's going home unless she wins the veto today. And if that's the case, then it's probably Claire. Now, let's hope for the chaos. Let's hope for pandemonium, all other kinds of things happening. But we'll see what happens. And we've got Zingbot showing up, which is going to be a whole lot of fun. As I said before, I'm really excited to see some of the zings thrown at some of these house guests. They may not be. I think they'll be excited, but it's going to be a lot of fun. So there you have it, guys. I'm going to shut it down. Y'all have a fantastic Saturday. Giga Maggies, beat the hell out of Kent State. Woo! Y'all have a great day. I will be back tomorrow. We'll talk about the veto results, figure out maybe what's going to happen based on who won this thing. We may have some fireworks. We'll find out. Y'all have a great one, guys. Cheers. SKD 143. Bye, my friends. Bye.